More than 65,000 future ag innovators and leaders are about to gather for the 91st National FFA Convention and Expo. CEO Mark Peschel is here to preview what's new, including the tech-savvy Blue Room and efforts to connect more young people to careers in ag. Plus, a flurry of tech transfer activity brewing at Indiana University. We'll explore some of the startups hatched during a record-setting 3-year period. And Hoosier beverage makers want you to drink cocktails perhaps as easily as beer. Our Trendiana segment rounds up some of the best ready-to-drink cocktails as we enter the heart of tailgate season. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business.
Stand by for Top of Show with music full. Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Tens of thousands of future ag leaders, entrepreneurs, and producers will converge on Indianapolis for the 91st National FFA Convention and Expo in the week ahead. And the more than 67,000 attendees will get a firsthand look at the Blue Room, a partnership with Microsoft focused on innovation, technology, and advancements in the food and ag sector. There's also a private concert with country legend Garth Brooks. And for a preview of the nation's largest student convention, let's welcome to the show National FFA CEO Mark Peschel. And it was, as always, Mark, welcome.
Thank you, Gary.
Big week ahead. This is always an incredible event. First of all, Garth Brooks, what a way to kick this off. Again, a private concert for attendees of the convention, but a great way to kick it off.
Yeah, it is. And Gary, our students are clearly excited about that opportunity. And Garth is excited as well to perform.
Yeah, put in perspective, difficult to do, I know, but the impact that this event has on Indianapolis and the Indianapolis region. 67,000 plus will be here for the event.
That's correct, and we expect an economic impact in the Indianapolis area of somewhere around $40 million, as well as just the activity of these students seeing what Indiana has to offer in terms of ag innovation.
Yeah, we'll talk about that because there's so much talk about talent and the need to attract talent, keep talent here across all sectors. But for many, for thousands of these young people, perhaps the first time they're seeing Indianapolis and what's going on in the city and the state.
Well, for some of our attendees, it's the first time they've seen a big city. Yep. So it's a great opportunity for young people to see a really great Midwestern city in Indianapolis. But we want to present these students and our FFA members with an opportunity to understand more about what career opportunities there are for them in agriculture.
Well, let's talk about that because that's a big issue in food and ag innovation, the ag biosciences. How do you connect with more young people? As I mentioned in the intro, the Blue Room is an innovative partnership you've established with Microsoft.
It is, and also a partnership, and one of the title sponsors, our own Agrinovus Indiana, and the team there that really helped us develop this idea of the Blue Room. It's all about innovation and technology in agriculture. It's all about exposing our students to the kinds of experiences that they can have in their careers. And I tell our students, try to think Disney World when they think about what our Blue Room will be like for them.
Well, talk about the opportunities that exist today and in the future in ag and the ag biosciences, because we talk so much about science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM, and so much of that connects directly with these types of jobs.
It does, and we know today there are more jobs in agriculture than there are young people graduating from ag programs to fill those jobs. We also know that about 1 in every 5 jobs in the United States is some way related to agriculture. Yeah. So in order to feed everybody by 2050, when we have 9+ billion people on this planet, we really need to get students engaged in the role they can play in innovation and technology to assure that we can meet agriculture's obligation to feed everyone.
So in part an awareness issue, and this Blue Room concept I think is really at the heart of trying to get that message out there.
It is, and of course, you know, we will be able to reach only a handful of our overall 670,000 members around the country with the Blue Room. So we've extended that into an educational program called Blue 365 that will take the content of the Blue Room, and we will be able to present that digitally to classrooms and students and teachers all around the country for the ensuing year.
Very good. A major event, and the National FFA Convention committed to Indianapolis through 2024.
We are.
What happens after that, we're going to learn here in a couple of months. Tell us where things stand with that.
We will. We begin early to identify what our 2025 through 31 location will be so that we can identify facilities, dates, and the like. And we began this process earlier this year. We spent the summer visiting some cities. We've narrowed it down to a couple of cities, one of which is Indianapolis.
Yeah. Can you tell us the other city?
The other city is Atlanta.
Okay, all right.
And so between Atlanta and Indianapolis, I would say second half of December, we'll be announcing where we'll be.
That will be an important announcement for the city of Indianapolis and the region. Mark Peschel, thanks for taking time. You're a busy guy year-round, but especially this time of year. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gary.
All right. Well, still ahead, for the first time in 8 years, the University of Evansville has a new president. Chris Petruskevich shares his vision for the university and also explains what is helping fuel an increase in enrollment. But first, the Indiana University Innovation and Commercialization Office celebrating another increase in tech transfer with some 141 patents. IU's VP for Research, Fred Cate, is here with what's driving that record activity, including more than $3 million in licensing and royalty revenue. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by DMI, mobilizing enterprises for the connected world. Well, IU continues to set records for tech transfer activity. The school's Innovation and Commercialization Office reporting a record-setting 485 inventions over a 3-year period. And for more on what's fueling these IU discoveries and an increase in women entrepreneurs as well, let's turn to Vice President for Research, Fred Cate. And as always, Fred, welcome back to the program.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
We talk about tech transfer. Many people know exactly what that is, but give us the thumbnail. Is tech transfer has largely been coming out of universities on the coasts, but now really becoming something that IU and other universities in the Midwest are taking advantage of.
Well, that's exactly right. And you know, tech transfer is all about taking the ideas that come out of the lab, that come out of the research environment, and translating them into products and services that could be useful to the community. So just like we publish articles or we give presentations, a far more effective way to get things out is to do it through tech transfer.
Yeah, creating real things
exactly
on a regular basis. Let's talk about the numbers, because as I mentioned in the introduction, 3 years of real momentum and record numbers when it comes to commercialization.
Yes, it's true. Each year has been a record, and so we're starting to set a standard now that's making me actually a little nervous about keeping it up. But you know, you mentioned the number of 500 inventions, and those are 500 now practical things that will benefit the public. We've seen 505 patents over the past 3 years. So again, getting that federal intellectual property protection so that companies now are more interested in investing in those. And then we've also seen astonishing growth in our number of licenses. So we're taking these inventions and interesting businesses in them, and they're buying a license to go out and use them.
And increasingly, the women are just as likely as men to be entrepreneurs and be behind these cool ideas.
That's exactly right. And you know, it's one area that doesn't discriminate at all by gender. In other words, great ideas, they're coming from everybody, and our job is to help get them out in the market.
What, in your view, is really fueling this activity, this record activity?
Well, I think there are a lot of things. I mean, one is, as you mentioned, tech transfer has been around for a long time. It's been something largely done at the coast, and we're getting better and better at it in the middle of the country. Another thing, it's been very sustained investment at IU, and so as you know, we've completely restructured the way that we approach technology transfer. We've made it a much more integrated process, so that from the moment we hire a good faculty member or we bring in a great student, we try to work with them the entire way through their career so that we're getting these disclosures, they're thinking about the practical benefits of what they're doing, and they're working with us to get this to the market.
Give us an example. There's so many you could point to, I'm sure, but an example of tech transfer and what's happening with a specific idea or company.
Right. Well, a good example is researcher Richard DeMarchi, who was at Eli Lilly and Company, and then he joined the faculty at IU. And in one of the things he's been working on are molecules that help address type 2 diabetes, the number one fastest growing disease in the country. And they also have an added effect. They help deal with obesity. And so you develop these molecules in the lab. You then go out and test them with animals. You then license them, get patents. And now we see companies testing these in human populations, and we're starting to see really dramatic results. So stay tuned. In 4 or 5 years, you might actually be using a pill or an injection that Richard developed at IU, but you'll be getting it from your doctor, and it'll change your life. Exciting stuff. Record numbers for tech transfer at Indiana University. Fred Cate, as always, thanks for joining us. Thank you very much. Well, Indoside acquired in a $2.1 billion deal. That tops our news. That's what's on tap this week. West Lafayette-based Indoside acquired by Switzerland-based pharma giant Novartis. And a $2.1 billion deal. It still needs shareholder approval, expected to close in the first half of next year. Indoside develops targeted cancer therapies, and earlier this month became the first Purdue startup to reach a value of $1.5 billion. The first company is launched from Indianapolis-based High Alpha since the venture studio received a $100 million boost in July. Anvil, High Alpha's 10th spin-out overall, develops software designed to reduce and prevent maintenance service industry injuries. Company led by former Angie's List VP of Technology, Robin Fleming. An Indianapolis-based PERC has received a $5 million round of funding. The support includes participation from 10 Indiana investors. PERC says the latest capital infusion will increase expansion of its artificial intelligence-driven software as a service used by what it describes as big-ticket retailers. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Still ahead, tailgating before that next big game has more options than ever. Ready-to-drink cocktails, a new trend in the alcoholic beverage industry. In this month's Trendiana segment, we'll show you what's being made right here in Indiana. But next, the University of Evansville is the 47th university in the world to be designed an Ashoka U Changemaker campus. UE's new president explains how the program empowers students and its impact on enrollment. Here's what's making news now around Indiana, brought to you by your Indiana Fever. Lintian Driveshaft in Columbus is planning a $90 million expansion. The automotive component supplier says the investment will lead to nearly 75 new jobs and help retain the current full-time workforce of nearly 1,600. Meantime, developers of the massive $440 million Electric Works project in downtown Fort Wayne have announced the first significant lease commitment for that project. RTM Ventures says it's working with Parkview Health to finalize a 10-year agreement to be a tenant in the mixed-use innovation district. Illinois-based J.D. Norman Industries is planning to close its facility in Muncie. In a notice to the state, the company says the decision will result in about 130 layoffs. And the Northern Indiana Commuter Transportation District Board of Trustees has approved contracts totaling up to nearly $36 million related to the South Shore Line, Westlake Corridor, and Double Track projects. Our partners at the Times of Northwest Indiana report each project has its team of project managers now in place as a result. Well, the University of Evansville's 24th president took office July 1. Christopher Petruskevich says a global recognition has been a catalyst, really, to increasing enrollment. He stopped by Studio I this week to talk about the impact of being a changemaker campus and his desire to connect with the business community.
I think most importantly is if you take a look at some of the facts about the University of Evansville, 96% of our students are doing internships, so we're having a connection with our community that's really exciting. 94% of our students have great jobs when they're done, either in graduate school or working in meaningful employment. So I think you add those pieces together and it shows that we're on the runway going in the right direction.
Since you've arrived on campus, a big designation, I know this Changemaker designation, that you say has already begun to really show some real benefit for the university.
So the Ashoka Changemaker designation is one that is of 47 universities in the world, so not just in the United States, but 47 universities in the world, none in Indiana, only 4 in the Midwest. In which we think about education just a little bit differently. the idea that you can come to a university and make a difference while you're there. So a big part of it is the connection to the community. A big part of it is a connection to the business community. The idea is that you don't have to wait until after you graduate. You don't have to wait until after you buy your first house and raise a family or retire, but come to the university and make a difference. So part of it is small things like a bike share program in Evansville, came out of the Changemaker campus. But some other big pieces as a result of working with some major companies about supply chain management. The best part is that they work across different disciplines. So you might have a theater major working with a finance major, working with an international studies major, and then they have access to CEOs and C-suite executives at various companies to help them solve some problems.
You talk about this connection to community, and that seems to be a recurring theme. That you want the university to connect, to better connect with the community. How do you see that playing out?
After my first month in office, the Stone Family Center for Health Sciences in downtown Evansville, and most people would say it's going to be really difficult to do because you have 3 universities working together and 4 hospitals working together, as well as the community all getting together. 5 years ago, most people thought that it was not going to be a possibility. We dedicated a new building downtown, and like most cities, there has to be a cornerstone on which you build for the future. The Ford Center is already downtown, the old National Events Plaza is downtown, but largely they are transient. People come for an event and then they go back home. Where the Stone Family Center for Health Sciences is one that is in the middle of downtown, in which we'll have between 200 and 230 students. Indiana University and USI will have another 100 or 150 students. So you have 400 students or so downtown, 100 to 150 faculty members and staff members. And so businesses are growing up around us to be able to support the infrastructure that the Stone Family Center brings.
Coming up next, tailgating being made easier with ready-to-drink cocktails. In this month's Trendiana segment, Yelp's Brittany Smith shows us a few Hoosier-made beverages that are part of that growing trend. There she is in our Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Starbank, getting to know you and your business. Well, the ready-to-drink alcohol market is buzzing in Indiana. An array of premixed and conveniently packaged adult beverages can be found from the biggest of stadiums to the smallest of restaurants, as well as hotels and airlines. Yelp's Brittany Smith is here now to show us how to mix up your tailgating party with these convenient craft cocktails. And as always, Brittany, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks for bringing all the product, too.
Of course. We're going to have a party after the show.
Looking forward to it. Great. Now, these ready-to-drink cocktails have really become a bit of a buzz, a trend in the alcohol industry.
Yeah.
Right?
When you look at the distilleries, wineries, breweries for Indiana, we're kind of hitting that second wave now where they're innovating and coming up with new products. They've figured it out for their first lineup, and now they're spreading out to the Midwest and beyond.
Yeah, and I think Cardinal Spirits in Bloomington is a great example of that. Yes. They're pioneers in a way in this ready-to-drink cocktail market, but are doing a lot of things and really growing.
Yeah, this is the first canned cocktail in Indiana by a craft distillery. So they're doing canned mule cocktails. So you have 2 different flavors. You've got the you've got the Hawaii flavor as well as some ginger infused in there. So they're really mixing it up so that people can grab a can, go on the go, take it to parties, take out some of the stress of it.
And as we talk about tailgating, these are available too at Lucas Oil Stadium,
yes,
right?
Exactly. So if you're maybe not a beer drinker, a wine drinker, they're giving you something new and a good way to support a local business.
Yeah, okay. We also stay in Indianapolis for our next stop, New Day Craft. Here in Indianapolis. They're responsible. They're really out in front, responsible for the Mead and Cider Fest. And they have a national profile.
Yeah, located right in the heart of Fountain Square. They were one of the pioneers, and Fountain Square has been coming back to life. So New Day has created the first mead spritzer in the U.S. You're going to find that this is something that really pleases those who love ciders, also loving the sparkling wine scene, as well as beer drinkers. So with this product, they have a lavender lemonade flavor. They have a hibiscus line. And pineapple is another one. Really fun design cans with a local designer. Really makes it a fun product to try something new.
Also in downtown Indianapolis, a winery that's been around for a long time, Easley Winery.
Yeah, Easley Winery is known for those who love to have a fun, tip-back kind of wine, and now they're mixing it up with their ready batch margaritas. So it's 11% alcohol. All you have to do is serve it over ice. It's with real lime juice and a little bit of salt. It's pretty tasty.
And you can find this all over the country, right?
Yes, yeah, that's one of the things. You can be in Texas in a grocery store and you're going to see Easley Winery refinery. It's becoming true with several of our distilleries as well. You're finding them beyond Indiana.
Blue Marble Cocktails is also in Indianapolis, one of the newer entries, right?
Yes, yes. And this is, you know, if you love a Long Island or a Bloody Mary, some of those classic cocktails, they have them already pre-batched, and you actually can get them in a keg, ready for a party, a wedding, whatever it is you're looking for.
Okay, Jello Burst is in Indianapolis. Jello shots, you see in the tailgates a lot.
We're really innovating. We're stretching out here. Exactly. Yeah, so they come in these great packets. You can freeze them, have them chilled. They have 4 different flavors, ranging from cinnamon to a hard tea. And it makes it really ideal if you're tailgating or if you're having a bachelorette party. They're just ready to roll.
And the industry that's ready to drink segment is kind of an emerging segment in Indiana.
Yes.
But as you touched on earlier, you can find these products made here in Indiana all over the country.
Yes, it's one of those beautiful things, like Cardinal Spirits, for instance. You know, they're looking to expand into other markets. You're going to find them outside in New York City, in DC. It's really putting that Hoosier brand beyond our state lines, which is really exciting for us.
All right, ready to drink cocktails, a growing segment of the market. Brittany Smith, as always, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me, Gary.
All right. Well, coming up, one of the largest U.S.-based manufacturers of high-speed electronic cables has found an innovative way to combat America's opioid crisis. In the business of health, how Belden's Pathways to Employment initiative is helping addicts recover and keep a job. Plus, did you know how the lack of access to child care costs Hoosier employers nearly $2 billion annually? Ahead in Eye on Education, we'll explore a new study and explain why advocates say investing in early education could reverse that trend. Stay with us.
Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4,
3 seconds.
2, dissolve, cue Gary.
It's time now for the Business of Health, brought to you by Hendricks Regional Health. Well, a manufacturing facility in Richmond is attracting national attention for a pilot program that helps Hoosiers battle the opioid epidemic with the promise of employment. Belden makes high-end broadcast, industrial, and network cables at the plant, but employee recruitment began to suffer as the opioid epidemic swept throughout the state. Kylie Valletta explains in the Business of Health. Kylie.
Thank you, Gary. Belden says throughout the last 2 years, the number of applicants failing drug screen tests has nearly tripled. The alarming trend helps spark its Pathways to Employment program. Applicants who fail pre-employment drug screens are offered a personalized rehabilitation program and a job at Belden if they successfully complete treatment. Here to tell us more about the program is Leah Tate, Belden Vice President of Human Resources. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
One thing we hear a lot about the opioid epidemic in Indiana is that it impacts rural areas. Sometimes those are the hardest hit. So why did Belden really want to take matters into its own hands and create this program?
Sure. So over the last couple of years, we saw almost tripling of our failed drug screens. We've all seen the statistics around opioids, and Wayne County is amongst the highest in the state. The Richmond community is extremely important to us. We've been in the community almost 100 years. We have an aging workforce, and we know that we're going to have retirements upcoming. So in an effort to be proactive around our sourcing of manufacturing talent, we decided to create a program to help people deal with addiction, so to address the issue and put people back to work.
And you started Pathways to Employment earlier this year. 23 people have entered the program. What kind of results are you seeing?
Yeah, so of the 23 that have entered the program, we've had 9 that have successfully gone through a portion of their recommended treatment. They've gone through and completed the required amount of clean screens in order to graduate into operating machinery. We have another 5 that are still in safety-conscious jobs, but we're hopeful that very soon they'll begin operating machinery. We have 2 that are now in the assessment process, and we do have 7 that have unfortunately dropped out of the program.
You're getting a lot of national attention for this program. Second Lady Karen Pence visited your facility last month. A lot of critics say businesses should be getting more involved in the opioid epidemic and substance abuse in general. So do you hope this can be a model for other companies?
We do hope it can be a model. We believe that in order for us to really address the addiction issues, that we have to work together with corporations, state and federal governments, in order to address the problem. And we feel like we're happy to share the program we've put together. We feel like it's a model that other companies can take and tweak them and make it fit for them.
And we were talking before, you know, these applicants, they have the skill set, they have the education, they're just failing the drug screen. So do you feel like this really gives people hope? What are you hearing?
We do feel like it gives them hope. It's been really rewarding and exciting to hear the reaction of people that have gone through the program, to hear their stories and see how this second chance opportunity has impacted them.
And it's not just opioids, and you're seeing that in the drug screens.
We are. We started the program around an opioid discussion, but as we've gone through, we've seen people fail for a host of different substances, many times a cocktail of substances. And so we've not limited it to opioids, but that's how the program did begin.
And just a few seconds left, what do you see for the future of the program?
So we'd like to continue to share the program across the state with other other employers, and we're looking at, within Belden, opportunity to expand to other operations across the country.
Well, it's a great example of businesses really getting involved in an important health issue. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, child care issues affect both Indiana families and the state's economy. A new study by the Indiana University Public Policy Institute and Early Learning Indiana estimates that Indiana businesses lose some $1.8 billion every year due to child care related work, absenteeism, and turnover. In this week's Eye on Education segment, the president and CEO of Early Learning Indiana, Maureen Weber, is here now to break down the numbers of the study released this week and also share some potential remedies. And Maureen, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much.
Big week for you and the organization. You had a summit that I actually participated in as well. And really, at that summit, you released the results of this IU Public Policy Institute study focused on the economics of a lack of quality child care. And the numbers really were striking.
They are astounding. And, you know, we've long understood the influence that high quality early care and education has on individual children's lives. What we were interested to learn is what impact is it having on our economy right now and Indiana's ability to recruit qualified workers. And what we found was that the impact is dramatic, both for businesses themselves, for the economy at large, and then ultimately for our tax coffers as well.
Yeah, some of those numbers include overall statewide $1.8 billion in impact to businesses. And something that struck me as well, Maureen, was the impact not just in the big metro areas, but in smaller communities and smaller areas. Park County, for example, in west central Indiana, the economic impact of business pegged at $3.3 million.
That's exactly right. You know, and as we travel the state, we hear from people who think that this is an urban challenge or a rural problem. And the fact of the matter is this study shows that it's both. It's affecting us in all corners of the state.
Talk about, if you will, because certainly early childhood education is getting a lot of attention, in particular in the business community over the last several years. Is this part of an effort on your part to really, I guess, extend that narrative, to tell the story of the real impact of lack of early learning opportunities?
That's exactly right. You know, I think businesses have been invested in our work because they understand the impact on their workforce long term. We know that children who have access to high quality early care and education reap benefits in terms of their academic achievement over their lifetime, lack of access to social services, and then ultimately their productivity in the workforce themselves. So we have a lot of attention from businesses because of that. We think that this will help us kind of continue that conversation and help them understand how it's impacting their workforce today.
As we were talking off camera too, you bring up the point that it's kind of multi-generational. So the young people, there's an impact, but for the parents as well.
That's exactly right. You know, there are a few investments that we can make that can have that sort of two-generational impact, and this is one of them. We can secure our future while also helping to improve our status quo and getting more workers on the field.
Okay, this is a budget writing session of the Indiana General Assembly. It's a big issue. It has been the last several sessions. The On My Way Pre-K program, now in about 20 counties. What's your expectation? I know you hope to expand it.
That's exactly right. You know, the Indiana General Assembly has shown a commitment to early care and education in recent years through the On My Way pre-K program, and we're hopeful that they will continue to look at ways to expand that. And then also to bring other stakeholders like businesses to the table to think about how we solve this issue statewide.
All right, it is a big issue, early childhood education. We'll hear a lot about it in the coming months at the State House. Maureen Weber, the president and CEO of Early Learning Indiana, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Indianapolis-based developer Ambrose Property Group is doubling down on its investment plans at the former GM stamping plant site in downtown Indianapolis. The company's vision for Waterside includes projects totaling nearly $1.4 billion. Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond has more on what could be a transformative project.
The bare bones of the former GM stamping plant on the near southwest side of Indianapolis seemingly tells the story of a bygone era. A once thriving urban community, now just barely surviving. But one Indianapolis developer says it has big plans to redefine the neighborhood by utilizing one of the city's most beautiful natural resources, the White River.
We are excited about our location right next to a major natural asset that historically the city and the state have kind of turned their back on, and we're really looking forward to opening that up and having that be the front centerpiece of what we're doing.
The new downtown district, officially christened Waterside, will span more than 100 acres.
In scale and scope, this is a massive project. It's going to be over $1.38 billion worth of development over the next 15 years. Hotels, apartments, mixed use, restaurants, pedestrian-friendly access, so we'll have bike-friendly and walking-friendly avenues.
And although the White River is expected to serve as the focal point of the new development, the site has a history steeped in manufacturing tradition dating back to the 1880s.
There were buggies that were manufactured here in this neighborhood. The first winner of the Indianapolis 500, the Marmon Wasp, was built in the neighborhood. And so well before Chevy, there was a long manufacturing history, and then you had Chevy and General Motors.
According to Senior Vice President Andrew Greenwood, during its heyday, this former GM stamping plant provided more than 6,000 jobs. He went on to say that Waterside will more than double that number over the next 15 years.
We're going to create a new thriving urban district and expand this side and make it something fabulous for the future.
Mary Rachel Redmond, Inside Indiana Business.
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Well, still ahead, our insiders will sound off on some of the week's top business news stories. But first, the temperature might be dropping outside, but inside the Indiana Farmers Coliseum, things heating up on the ice. As we go inside Indiana sports, Indy Fuel owner Jim Hallett is here with highlights of the team's 5th season. Well, the sounds of skates scraping on ice and bodies flying into the boards at Indiana Farmers Coliseum signal the beginning of another hockey season for the Indy Fuel. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill.
Thanks, Gary. The Fuel begin their 5th season of Frozen Entertainment in the East Coast Hockey League, eager to stamp themselves as a winner both in the rink and in the community. And joining me today to discuss the season outlook as well as their local initiative is the owner of the Fuel, Jim Hallett. And Jim, we welcome you to the show. 5th year, big step forward last year. For the first time, you made the playoffs, and now you hope to capitalize on that.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. It's good to be with you. Made the playoffs last year, and we think we've got something to build on this year. We've got the core of the team returning. We have 6 players assigned from the Blackhawks, and a number of free agents that we've signed. And quite frankly, we think this is the best team that we've put on the ice in 5 years, and we're looking forward to a great season.
Over the years, you feel like now you've really established a core and a presence here in Indianapolis with the Fuel.
Yes, absolutely. You know, going into this, we felt it would take 5 years to build a brand for people to become familiar with the Fuel, and we think we've done that. Our season tickets continue to grow, fan attendance, participation continues to grow, and I think the sport continues to gain more and more momentum here in the community.
Interestingly, and we're talking about building the team, you have to go out and recruit players to come to Indianapolis. One of the things you've done out in Fishers next to your fuel tank, another outstanding ice facility. You've built an apartment complex for the guys to live.
Yeah, you know, we have to provide housing for these players, and we spend a considerable amount of money on housing, and at the end of the day we felt that maybe we could build our own housing, keep it right beside the fuel tank where the players work out and sometimes practice, and sometimes interact with our fans. And it just seemed like a great location, and we built the housing, and it's been really, really well received by the players.
The fuel tank, interestingly, I mean, you said that's also continuing to grow. Junior hockey, and it's one of the fastest growing sports in the country. You're taking advantage of that.
Yes, youth hockey continues to grow, and as I often said, there's no shortage of kids that want to play hockey. There's a shortage of facilities, and we've made a major investment in 2 ice arenas up there in Fishers, and we've seen registrations continue to grow 20% year over year for the last couple of years.
Out in the community, you've done a great thing. You've got a bus now you've donated to the Boys and Girls Clubs of Indianapolis. That's terrific.
Yeah, we have. You know, this gives boys and girls an opportunity to come to field games and to come to ice sports that they may never get an opportunity to come to. So we bought them a 60-passenger bus. And what we've done is we've asked our season ticket holders, any tickets that they're not going to use, they can donate to the Boys and Girls Club, and that's going to work out well, and we're pretty proud of that effort.
That's fantastic. And a program called 0 to 60. 0
to 60 was with Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and we're in the process of promoting bigs, as they say, and we're looking to grow to an additional 60 Big Brothers to sign up to participate in that program.
Well, Jim Hallett, we certainly appreciate you coming on the program. And by the way, if you haven't been out to the Farmers Coliseum, that is a fantastic hockey venue. So congratulations on that. Jim Hallett, best of luck. Have a great season. Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, coming up, our insiders are getting warmed up to sound off on Ambrose Property Group's waterside development, Electric Works in Fort Wayne landing its first big tenant, and a lot more. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Well, each week, a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week, sounding off on Ambrose Property Group doubling down on its waterside project in downtown Indianapolis. High Alpha spinning out its 10th company, and a former mayor to lead Crystal House International. Our insiders this week are Beck Communications Group President Laura Beck, also Short Strategy Group Chairman and CEO Frank Short, and Harmless Consulting's Mike Harmless. And welcome one and all to another edition of the Insiders.
Thank you.
Top story this week really that broke toward the end of the week, Indocide, a Purdue-based, Purdue-launched company, if you will, 15 years ago or so, cancer therapy company, acquired by Novartis, the big international pharma company, for $2.1 billion. A huge number. If you remember, the exact target Salesforce deal was $2.5 billion. But to have a deal like that, Laura, what does it say about technology in Indiana? You know, the coasts tend to get all of the attention, but here's a $2+ billion deal right here in Indiana.
Yeah, I think it definitely speaks to the strength of our tech sector here and the fact that there is so much happening in the heartland as opposed to on the coast. You hear about it all the time. So it's incredibly exciting when you pull together all of the assets that were behind it. It really shows how strong we are and how much we are continuing to grow.
Mike, do you think that Indiana is kind of beginning to emerge out of the so-called flyover state status?
Yeah, I think so, and I think it's an evolution that's occurring with the higher education folks. I think that Mitch Daniels certainly is taking Purdue, challenging them to do things new and differently. I think IU is being incredibly well led. There's a lot of innovation and creativity going on in those two schools and all the public and private institutions. And I think the brain drain is turning into brain gain now in central Indiana.
And part of that too, stemming that brain drain, is quality of life, quality of place projects. And one of them, Frank, a big one, is Ambrose Properties, a big deal at the former GM stamping plant site. Initial plans, they said, hey, we're going to invest about $500 million. Now they're saying it's going to be more like $1.4 billion. Waterside, they're going to leverage the water, the river. It's quite an ambitious project.
Yeah, and I think it's the kind of project that transforms a city. And the good news for us is we've had so many big projects down the line, but this just falls in the line. They're going to take the river, which has kind of been neglected for years, make that the highlight of it, connect those neighborhoods, the valley, the west side, to the rest of downtown. So downtown will extend another mile farther south. But I think the fact that it's a mixed use and everything they're talking about, you know, you combine that with Bottle Works up on the other end of Mass Avenue, you know, it's just another
tie-in for the quality of place. You know, you can get on those scooters and go everywhere you want now.
Well, I think when we think about the White River historically, we've often turned away from the river, and now we're seeing this development turn toward the river, and it's such a beautiful and sustainable asset that we have. So Frank mentioned the neighborhoods. You've also got the White River Vision Plan process that's also happening that is stretching to the north as well.
All the way up to Noblesville.
Yeah, really connecting everything in a really interesting and diverse way. And so it lends to some really exciting things that are happening there.
Transformational, I think, gets overused these days, but I mean, I think this project,
it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Especially as you look to the western part of downtown beginning to develop.
Yeah, you do too, because you also have a great place. You've got the River West Great Place as well, and so that's part of the initiative to really focus on these various neighborhoods throughout the city, and they're one of them, and they're doing some really creative things as well.
Yeah, and other cities in Indiana, South Bend did this years ago, focusing on their river running right through, the two rivers running right through there. Fort Wayne, Tom Henry started focusing on that several years ago, and I'm really glad that Indianapolis is really going to focus on the White River, because I think it's a huge underutilized asset.
And you talk about momentum in the tech space. High Alpha, the Venture Studio launched its 10th company this week. They received a $100 million infusion in capital earlier this year. PERC has raised $5 million, a tech company here in Indianapolis. So the money that has always been a challenge, still is a challenge, really beginning to flow a lot more in Indiana.
Yeah, I think you're seeing a lot more activity, as Laura said, in the tech sector, that people are realizing, you know, quality of place. There's good people here. Mike talked about the brain gain instead of brain drain. It's all starting to pay off, and people are saying we could have a place here and still compete with the coast. You know, our air travel's gotten better. You can get to the West Coast on direct flights. You can get to Austin. You can get to the East Coast on direct flights. So it all falls in line, and the cost of living is so much better here. You know, $5 million in Indianapolis goes a lot farther than it does a lot of other places.
Yeah, and you know, you talk about a sector of the economy that's very important, the convention business, obviously, and one of the biggest of the entire year takes place in the week ahead, and that's the National FFA Convention and Expo. 67,000, maybe close to 70,000 people there. And Laura, the importance of that, I think, is on multiple levels. And there's going to be a decision. It's committed to Indy through 2024, a decision on where it goes beyond that. It's down to Indianapolis and Atlanta. So that'll be a big choice for the organization with implications for Indiana.
Well, I don't think it's that. It should be a big choice for them, because I think we are the natural fit for it. We are a top-notch convention town. We do it better than anybody else, and we know that. And at the same time, we also, located where we are and the innovation that's happening in the agricultural sector, we're really just the perfect place for it. So I'm very hopeful they stay, and happy to make that pitch.
You've got to be quick on this. Crystal DeHaan announced retiring as Crystal House International CEO. She'll stay on the board. Bart Peterson will be her replacement. Like all of your thoughts quickly.
Yeah, quick. I mean, you know, Bart started in the family business. I mean, he's, you know, he learned the private sector, was a great mayor, great policy mind. You know, he was wonderful at Lilly. I mean, couldn't be a better fit.
And you worked for Bart.
He did, and he still claims me, I think. Yes, he's a great policy mind. I'm really excited to see what he's going to do.
Well, I think he was the first mayor that, you know, got the right to authorize charter schools. He's been an innovative thinker in education, been chairman of the Mind Trust board since he left office. You know, he'll be a great addition. And, you know, I mean, Crystal House's mission of helping the neediest children in the neediest places in the world, Bart Peterson will do a great job in that role.
Yeah, and should also end by saying, can't overstate the importance of Crystal DeHaan's contributions philanthropically. Very important. Frank Short, Mike Harmless, Laura Beck, thank you one and all, and we'll be right back after this. Coming up next week, the River Ridge Commerce Center is a massive economic engine for Southeast Indiana. I'll talk with its executive director about a decade of growth and reaching a big milestone, 10,000 employees. Plus, longtime philanthropist, humanitarian Crystal DeHaan retiring. She'll be in studio along with Bart Peterson. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.